You try to create habits and routines for yourself, but they just don't stick like you want them to. And after a few attempts, you begin to tell yourself a story that you just aren't good at sticking to things, that you can't be consistent. At some point, the self-development world became really obsessed with rigid habits and routines, and this approach became the default way to change. And if after designing your environment and finding a really good why, you still couldn't stick to things in the way you wanted to, well then it's a self-discipline problem. But what if that isn't true at all? What if it has nothing to do with self-discipline and it has everything to do with this approach to change? In this video, I want to talk about why the desperate pursuit of structure and habits can actually get in the way of change and exactly what to do instead. So here's the approach that you most often hear about when it comes to creating change. Pick a goal, find a good why, design your environment, create a system, a habit, stick to it. The main issue with this kind of approach is human variability. What works really well for one person could also make another person deeply miserable. For example, I love flowy days. I would not love a day to be planned down to the minute. That would feel miserable for me. But for another person, they might love a time block that tells them exactly what to do at each minute of the day. That way they don't have to think. Both approaches are valid. When there are people involved, there's going to be variability when it comes to what works. But right now, that's just not how we're thinking when it comes to habits and behavior change. Instead, when any kind of new behavior change flops, people are almost trained to point to themselves as the problem instead of their approach. And slowly, over time, that just degrades their self-concept. They start to see themselves as inconsistent. They start to think there's something wrong with them. Here are some questions to ask yourself to test whether you are in this rigid mindset when it comes to change. Number one, have you ever quit a habit or a change or just fallen off it casually and then thought to yourself, I'm lazy, instead of, okay, well, maybe that approach didn't work for me. Number two, when you have tried to change in the past, did you immediately go to, all right, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z on this day, at this specific time, instead of first asking yourself, what would be the most enjoyable way for me to approach this change? Knowing what I know about myself, what I like, what I don't like, how do I think that I could make this really work for me? If you answered yes to any of these questions, there's a hot chance that you've slipped into a rigid approach to change and that it is slowly ruining your life. When I stopped approaching change in this way, it felt like I could finally breathe a sigh of relief and actually make progress. So what can you do about it? What is the better approach? It's coming at habits with what I call an identity-first approach. Start aiming for a consistent identity, not a consistent plan, not a consistent habit, a consistent identity. You're not becoming the person who goes to the gym and lifts weights 5 times a week at 6 p.m. You're becoming the type of person that prioritizes moving their body. That's the identity you want to aim for. When you take an identity-first approach, everything becomes much less personal. For example, if you want to have the identity of a person who always has an organized home, there are 20 different ways to approach that identity. And if one doesn't work, you move to the next. It's not personal. It's like trying on outfits. It's like trying a new dish at a restaurant. Imagine if you went to a restaurant, you tried a new dish, you didn't like it, and then you went, okay, I guess eating out isn't for me. That's how insane you sound when you try one new approach to change and then you go, okay, well, I guess I'm just not a productive person. I'm just not someone who could ever exercise. I'm just not someone who could do A, B, or C. Eventually, when you attach yourself to an identity over an approach, you will find an approach that works. Even if it's not what you expected to work, it could be completely surprising to you what ends up working for you. And this way of thinking also opens you up to a lifetime of change. Someone who has an identity of, I am a person who moves my body regularly, might really go hard at yoga for all of their 20s. And then in their 30s, they could discover kayaking. All of a sudden, they're a kayaker. In their 40s, they're into weightlifting. Their approach doesn't really matter. They still are going to maintain that identity of someone who moves their body regularly. Imagine if that same person got attached to the nitty-gritty, got attached to the approach, the how of their identity, and went, oh, well, if I'm not into yoga, then I'm not consistent, I'm not disciplined. A person with an identity of I get things done might start out with time blocking, move towards bullet journaling, and then get into a Kanban style to-do list. Their approach doesn't matter. They still have the identity of a person that gets things done. The fixed approach mindset, the rigid, habit, structured mindset actually does suit some people really, really well. Here's how to know if it's the best fit for you. Number one, you have a very consistent life. So in the words of Wendy Woods, a leading habit researcher, variety weakens habit. If you are not arranging your life to reliably, unfailingly cue your habit, then that habit will never take hold. The translation is you need a very routine, very stable life to make a habit work. So immediately, if you have small children, if you have any kind of chaos, it's not going to work. And that's not me saying that you can't attain an identity. You absolutely can attain an identity. It's just probably not going to happen through very rigid, very structured habits. Instead, it's going to happen when you get flexible about your approach. The second type of person they've found rigid, structured habits work quite well for are people who are naturally quite self-disciplined. So I think we've all met these people. They're really admirable. They just do things. They probably wouldn't watch a video like this because their self-discipline is so innate. Immediately, if you're neurodivergent, you have a lot of responsibilities, you have kids, there's chaos at home, you kind of aren't in that equation. When it comes to rigid habits, you aren't catered for. So instead of going for structured, disciplined habits, you need to go for an identity-first approach. Here are 4 very practical, very actionable ideas to make an identity-first approach doable. Number 1, the 20 paths rule. Instead of trying to change your life with a rigid plan of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'll do A, B, and C, kick off any new change in your life with 20 potential pathways, 20 different approaches, and do this before you start the change. That way, if one approach doesn't work for you, it's a lot easier to depersonalize it and go, okay, cool, I'm going to move to the next approach. Obviously, that works better for broader identity changes. So I am becoming a person who is organized. That works really well for. But if your physio has assigned you a set of very strict exercises that you need to do on a daily basis, it's a bit harder. It's still doable though. You can write down 20 different approaches that vary the when, that vary the with whom, that vary the what else is going on around you. Number 2, prioritize freshness and flexibility. So identity first, pick the identity that you want to embody. I am an organized person. I am a productive person. I am a person who prioritizes moving my body. Then, daily, write down 5 different ways that you might embody that identity based on the amount of time, energy, freedom that you have on that particular day. And then pick the option that seems the most fun, that you feel the most drawn towards. You might be tempted to use a popular technique that I've shared before, which is sort of creating a menu of items that you then pick from on a daily basis. I love this idea. I've shared it before. However, if you value freshness, if you value novelty, if you're neurodivergent, I wouldn't recommend this approach. That menu that you create for yourself that will feel really exciting in the moment might start to feel stale for you really quickly. You are more likely to take action on a fresh thought than a stale thought. And your list from 2 weeks ago, your menu from 2 weeks ago, that is full of stale thoughts. Number 3, the fun filter. Really prioritize the question, what is most fun for me here? Filter for fun, knowing that the most fun option, the option that feels the most rewarding to you, is the one that you will be more persistent at. One study showed that giving people the option to choose what was most enjoyable versus what was the most useful, what was the most effective or efficient, increased persistence. So for example, picking a fun exercise like dancing around the house, if that's fun to you, versus going down to the gym was immediately more likely to increase persistence, how long the person stuck it out. Number 4, assume enjoyment over self-discipline. So my mother-in-law, I love her, I'm obsessed with her, she's amazing. And she walks for like an hour on the beach most days for the past I don't even know how long. I think since I've met her, which is like 10 plus years. She's also not David Goggins. She does not have weirdly large amounts of self-discipline to get herself to do things that she doesn't want to do. She loves walking. She loves the beach. If those 2 things were not true, she wouldn't be walking on the beach for an hour every day. She'd find some other way to move her body in a way that's actually enjoyable to her. You need to stop comparing yourself to people who like doing something more than you like doing it, therefore are more consistent with it. That's a weird comparison. Instead, find the things that you like doing more than other people and do them more consistently than other people. I'm gonna have a playlist on the screen of all of my videos that talk about consistency. So if you're in that mindset, you have something in your head, you're like, yeah, I wanna be more consistent with that you've been thinking about through this video, watch that playlist. It's gonna be on the screen. I appreciate you so much and I'll see you soon.